after we had set up the Bachelor of Architecture degree program on a 2-year pre-professional and a 3-year professional basis for the 5 years, the next was to move the next step into a graduate professional school, the graduate degree, the Master of Architecture. Because there was mixed reactions with the faculty. I think primarily because they'd always worked with a bachelor's degree, they had questions about going to the graduate level. And I guess I was very dictatorial at that point. I said, we're going to have a graduate degree in architecture. So we did, and it became, instead of a 2-3 program, it became a 2-4 program. And worked out very successfully, I think. And I had also found in all my visitations that the strongest schools were graduate professional schools offering the Master of Architecture degree as the first professional degree. So I think I had done my homework and had a solid reason for going in that direction. And I thought it put everything in proper order in the college. By that time we had somewhere around, later on there were about 800 students that were out there in the pre-professional years. Those were the first 2 years of liberal studies and taking tryout courses and other things. And then we would steadily get at least 100 to 150 applications from, not only from Arizona, but from other schools across the country into our graduate professional study program. And then the second major change was to go multidisciplinary. And I thought this was also a characteristic of the strongest colleges across the country. So to make it short, interior design was lodged in the Department of Art, and they had a number of people who were either architects or interior designers, and they felt more comfortable with architecture and they wanted to move over. And so that accommodation was made. By the same token, in engineering they had industrial design, product design, and they also felt it would be much more comfortable to be in with architecture. Maybe somewhat similar to Art Center in Los Angeles, which was well known for their industrial program. So they moved over as well. And that became a Department of Design Sciences. So we felt that that would encompass those programs and some others that we added in later on. And then the other area, this was part of departmentalization that occurred, was planning. And this was a major mission of mine was, excuse me, I had felt that solar energy was a natural. Columbia had Avery Library, which was the largest architectural library, at least at the time, practically in the world, and publications going all the way back to the Renaissance. So preservation, historic preservation, was a natural specialization for Columbia. MIT had the solid reputation in terms of technology, and so computers were the gradual area of specialization. For ASU, I felt it was solar energy, without a doubt. The expertise existed with the faculty, and I thought was well used with John Yellett and others. And engineering also had a number of people in the area. There had been some exhibitions on solar energy that Dean Elmore had put together. And it was in the spotlight along with energy conservation. And this was very early, but right now they're talking about sustainability, which is exactly what we were doing at that time under another name. And so I felt this would be the one area that this college would be identified with as having an international reputation for solar energy. Some things happened, so we did that. We started to put the program together. We combined that, and we put it in with urban planning and landscape architecture into what was called the Department of Environmental Planning, and a degree to go along with it, a master's degree in that area. And students could specialize in solar energy, or they could go into urban planning, or they could go into landscape architecture. So we had a multidisciplinary college, which I thought this was one of the last pegs to put together in the program. And interestingly enough, the word got out. We needed a testing yard for solar energy. We had John Yellett and Dr. Muma, and also some people from engineering. And we had no space. There was no outdoor space. Everything was in the building. And I went over to people and were handling the physical plant of the campus and the planning department over there, and I said, you know, we have to have a space, an outdoor space, to build a yard where we can put together our solar program. He said, well, there isn't any. And I didn't take it for an answer. I said, we've got to have it, so let's find a place. So there was a house that was little used on University Way, and he says, well, we had some people that wanted that house. And I said, well, why don't you hold them off? And I said, they've got a yard space over there, and we want the yard, and we can use it for extra office space, and we need it, and got the backing of Dannenfeld, and so we got that space, and that became our solar testing yard. Put together, to make a long story short, a weekend where moms and pops could come in and assemble their own solar hot water heater collectors. They would go in and study on a Friday night. Saturday morning they'd spend the day putting it together and how to assemble it on their roofs. It's got rather hot out there, so we needed to have a shelter. So we got a grant from the Steel and Iron Institute to build a steel face frame that we could mount these on, and we had our solar testing yard. Then Harvard heard about us, and a professor at Harvard that I knew heard that I was doing that and wrote about what were we doing in solar energy and so on. So she sent out the entire class from the Graduate School of Design at Harvard University to visit and see what we were doing in solar energy. I should say that this was primed by one other event. When I first came on board in 1975, there was an arrangement to have the National Convention of Architecture students at Arizona State. They didn't tell me that when I took the job, and I thought, wow, I don't know how I'm going to put all this together. Anyway, we put it together, and the students thought it was the best thing that they'd ever had as far as a national convention, because it was themed on solar energy. So the word was out nationally at that point from the students. But when Harvard came to visit, why that was the other great event was that ASU had great athletic teams, great football teams. I remember Frank Cush's days and all that sort of thing, and also great baseball teams. And they wanted to move from being in the WAC conference, so Western Athletic Conference, to what was then the Pac-8 at that time, now the Pac-10. And there was a big investigation that those schools had. They wanted to expand, but they wanted to be sure that the universities that wanted to enter into this were on the same par academically as were their other programs, UC Berkeley, UCLA, and USC, and Oregon, and those schools. So they sent a team around, and the only two things they thought, or at least they reported to the press, was that they thought that the ASU's Business College was great, and they thought that the College of Architecture was also great. And I always kept that clipping and felt that that was a real send up. The other thing they mentioned was they thought that there was promise for solar energy to become an international reputation that could be built for ASU. And that fit right in with what I was doing at the time and what the faculty were doing. So.